Yeah, there really is a difference when you grind it.
Do we have any
yourself.
chocolate salt around?
Ooh,
I don't know.
Let's see if I have one.
Some.
Yeah. Maybe there's something there. Yeah.
There's got to be some in there. I want some.
you doing a full pack of chocolate? Oh, you want a sweet? Okay.
I usually do like half a packet.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna do.
Sure.
All right, then I'll do a freaking half, and I'll keep it somewhere.
That's the worst.
Or how about I do both of your halves?
Wait, what?
And then you.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Oh God. You know the horrible thing though? Women don't usually get the gay humor. They just think you're gay. Right? Which, I mean, they're kind of right, but at the end of the day, it's like, why don't they just say it's you? They deal with it, man. Play along.
I don't have any idea about this, so forgive me. But are some of your black friends a little different with like gay humor? Like, are they like really like?
So
Because I've known a few black guys that are like they don't.
I know,
but I don't know if that's normal amongst other black folks or not.
the ones I know really
Like, they
close,
won't even play that game at all.
the ones I know really close that I've known for like my whole life, like they're all right with it. Like my boy Brian, I'll like poke his butt and shit, and like we be doing shit, right? So he's cool. But like like if you have not typically.
I know
that
some
shit
white
doesn't
people
fly.
that are that way too.
Yeah.
I know white people that are that way.
Typically that shit doesn't fly with a lot of black people, but yeah, man, you gotta be a special kind of. Yeah, you're right. I know what you're getting at, Mark, and you're totally right.
That's so funny.
I love the cultural differences. I think they're fun. I think they're funny too.
Yeah, man.
I remember Magic Johnson like talking about this like Starbucks that he had that he opened up. He's like, this is the same as every other Starbucks. He's like, he goes, except he's like, we don't have scones.
Yeah.
People
don't eat scones.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And he went up to one of the guys that was there who was sitting outside drinking his coffee. He's like, hey sir, would you like a scone? The guy goes, what's a scone? he's like, there you go.
I wouldn't know what a scone was when I was a teenager. I don't actually. You know what?
He's hilarious,
Dude. I know what a scone is, but I've never eaten a scone. I just realized that.
They're not that good.
I don't really know what a scone is.
It's kind of like
It's like a hard thing.
It's like a pastry a little bit. It's a
yeah.
little bit like a croissant with frosting on it, but it's not as good, even nearly as good as that
Okay.
would be.
I guess
Actually,
I had it right in my mind.
Actually, that'd
That'd be
amazing.
really good. Yeah.
All right, let's get this
Yeah.
party started.
Guess I'm gonna use this as my mixer. Let's
Yeah,
go
I didn't have
mixer.
anything to mix
Okay.
mine.
I'm gonna
So
use the
I
element
just-
to mix
I
it
just
all.
gave it a swirl and it worked pretty good.
Okay, you know what? Let me just do that so I don't cause a freaking mess.
So in mine, I'm going to get to the bottom. It's just going to be all chocolate salt.
That's the best.
You get just a little bit here and there, and then all of a sudden, wham, element chocolate salt to the face.
You know, I was sometimes I'm following like a pretty religious carnivore diet, but then I recognize like I drink a lot of coffee. And then I also recognize I eat a lot of stuff that has chocolate in it. Like this chocolate salt. So I got more plants than I know what to do with.
Yeah.
Pause. Wait. Is coffee?
It's a plant.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. Wow.
Let's just consider it a vegetable, eh?
Yeah.
Did you eat your veggies today? Yeah, I had coffee.
Mhm.
That's a good one.
Well,
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
right?
use that from now on.
what is a bean?
A legume?
So
Oh.
what's a legume?
No, is it a legume?
No, isn't a legume a legume? Legume.
Legumes?
It's a bean. Coffee bean is a bean. That's not a legume.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shit.
Roasted legumes.
Well, aren't beans legumes?
Yes, they are, but is a coffee bean a legume?
I just like saying legume.
I do like it too. It's like
Legumes.
Fun word.
Yeah.
Legume.
it rides off the tongue.
Yeah.
Legumes.
You can't say it with a dry mouth, though.
Andrew, I'd love to give you a cheers, but you're all the way over there.
I am
so,
far.
Kabing.
element cheers.
Cheers.
Kabing.
Kapowie.
Kapink.
Kapowie.
Alrighty.
Yeah,
Take it
so-
down the hatch.
Bottoms up. We threw some chocolate salt in here today to impact the flavor and then also to get some of our electrolytes in there.
Electrolytes. I've actually skipped doing caffeine first thing in the morning like I used to.
Yeah.
I started doing just element first thing when I wake up. So far, it's been a transition, but it's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I was pretty stoked about that. But yeah, I'll start my day with just whatever flavor element. And I'm not going to lie, I was getting like the caffeine headaches, but I'm no longer getting those. And I think the element's actually helping.
Dude, I think like starting your morning with electrolytes because you haven't drinking water during the night and you probably sweat a little bit, you're probably a little bit electrolyte deficient, is a great idea. And I think I like that because I have a lot of friends that they drink quite a bit. Let's say on the weekends they drink quite a bit. So I have given them a box of Element and said, hey, try this. And every single one of them reports back, bro, you saved me. I don't have a hangover anymore. Like it's a real thing. You know what I mean? So it's a tool, man.
Getting that hydration in there. And I think a lot of people, and I didn't know much about this, years and years ago, but I used to just drink tons and tons of water because I was like, I'm working out. You see the people with the gallon jug, and I didn't really even know, but at the time I was actually depleting myself further because there was no electrolytes in there. There was no salt. You just keep peeing and peeing and peeing forever. And so now with introducing this, introducing some electrolytes and introducing some Element, it's been really, really helpful.
Absolutely. So super beneficial and taste amazing. Head over to drinklmnt.com/power project. At the time of this recording, they still are offering the free Element recharge pack. It kind of comes and goes. So if you guys haven't taken advantage of that, head over there right now because we don't know how long that's going to last. But if in case it's not still there, check out the value bundle. That's paying for 3 boxes and getting 4. You get any 4 flavors you want shipped to your door. It's just really just an awesome deal. So again, that's at drinklmnt.com/power project. No code needed. Just load that into your cart and enjoy your Element electrolyte. Sorry, I was reading an email because I shouldn't be reading while I'm trying to speak.
It's funny though. It's like every single time these people, it's just like, man, maybe you shouldn't be drinking so heavily every single weekend. But since you do.
Oh yeah, you're like enabling.
Yeah, I'm making it easier for them to drink more.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck. People kind of start that train going on like Thursday. Like Thursday somehow becomes a weekend.
Thirsty Thursday.
And then Friday, Saturday, and it just kind of keeps rolling over into the next day.
Keeps going.
And the only thing that makes you feel good is to drink more.
Oh.
Then you're in trouble.
Yeah. Slippery
that happens
slope.
With coffee, like the next day.
Tell me about it.
Like the reason why you get up and think about coffee is because you're starting to have coffee completely come out of your system. Yeah. And you're like, I can't live like this.
Yep.
You want that caffeine again.
Yeah.
So there you are waiting in line.
I've been relying on energy drinks a little bit too much. Like I went from having a little bit of coffee here and there to kind of a lot of coffee to like, I just need to get this in my system right away. So let me crack open, a cold, energy drink. And then I'm just like, wow, dude, I had like 2 today. And it went from just like regular ones to the ones that have like 300 milligrams.
Yeah.
And then I'd get home and I'm just like, I'm shot. Like I'm so tired. I'm like, what's happening? So I'm just trying to wean myself off of like energy drinks right now. And so like coffee and like a Coke Zero, like those are kind of they're okay right now. But I went probably 3 days with nothing. And dude, my head was killing me. So again, I just kept sipping Element. And that was the only thing that could like kind of mellow out that weird headache.
A lot of coffee doesn't even tell you how much caffeine's in it. Like sometimes you would have to like go and like look it up. I've even had some cold brew cans and stuff. It doesn't really say on it. And now that I'm making supplements, I understand why you have to like test every single batch in order for you to be able to make specific claims like that on your label. And so that could be very expensive and just a giant pain in the ass.
Wow.
But it would be great to make like a cold brew coffee that just didn't have that much caffeine in it. I think most of the companies are thinking the other direction. Like when someone drinks this, they're going to get like a huge jolt. And it probably makes a lot of sense since we're addicted to caffeine that you think about that cold brew again. You're like, I need to go get that one.
Yeah.
That one lit my face on fire. But it would be interesting to like, you would probably have people drink more if it had less caffeine in it.
That, and I think that it would just be people that are a little bit more conscious about it. it would be healthier for them.
Right.
Because for me, like, I like the feeling of caffeine. Everyone loves the feeling of caffeine after you get it. 45 minutes later, you're like, I can fucking take on the whole world. But, you know, when I start to get aware, I'm like, I do like the taste too. Like, I really actually like the sensation of coffee. So I could have something,
the ritual of it. Yeah.
The ritual. I can have something that doesn't have an insane amount of caffeine. Let's say 50, 75 milligrams. And I can get by with that just because I got the coffee in.
Yeah. I mean, and we talk about sleep all the time. So imagine being able to have like a cup of coffee toward, you know, closer to the end of the, I'll say the afternoon, and not have to worry too much about it keeping you up.
Decaf kind of makes it seem like you're giving up on life, doesn't it? Doesn't it make you feel like, I mean, it just, for some reason, like, I used to have decaf coffee here and there at my house, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Like,
What am I think if you don't know it's decaf.
Yeah, right.
There's
That's what I'm saying. If you had lower dosed caffeine products, you probably wouldn't even barely notice.
You wouldn't.
Maybe.
You wouldn't.
I kind of want to mix half and
Holy
half.
cow.
Oh, we got a big boy on today.
Jesus.
That's a sick tat.
It's not just the angle, I don't think.
Is that better?
That's
yeah,
great.
that's fantastic.
Perfect.
So what's the word on the street in the NFL? What's going on out there? Are you starting camp yet or anything like that? What's going on?
We're in off season right now, so we start camp July 27th. A little bit later start this year. Enjoy a little bit more of summer, but yeah, kind of the quiet time up in Minnesota. My parents' lake cabin, so just hanging out, training and relaxing, getting ready.
What was last year like for you guys? You know, with what was going on, was it just weird and different and strange? Like maybe not having as many people in the stands and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, that shit was really weird. You know, you went from having this crazy external motivation, easy way to stay up, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So, you know, you really had to find that internal motivation. And, you know, it went from that first week, you know, the stadiums are figuring out like how much music they can play, when they can put the fake crowd noise in, what volume they can put it in. So that first week in Buffalo, man, that was tough, but everybody figured it out. And, you know, once they got the music playing and the crowd going, when there's some sort of noise, it was much easier and didn't feel quite like intramural scrimmage. Felt more like an NFL football game.
I'm from New York, and unfortunately, I have been a Jets fan for a long, long time. And I texted my uncles last night. Both of them are coaches. One's a basketball coach. The other one's a high school football coach. And they said, please let Connor know the 45 years of pain that we've been suffering. So what's going on there with the Jets organization? Are things maybe going to pick up this year? Things going to maybe turn around?
Oh yeah, I think so. You know, the last couple of coaches the Jets have been more like those X's and O's gurus, you know.
Right.
And Saleh's that, you know, leader of men, that guy that can come in and turn something around, and he's going to build a culture more. You know, he's more focused on building the culture than he is on you know, having the sweetest play. And he's going to dial up the coolest thing. He's more about, you know, we're going to play harder, faster, and longer than our opponent, and keep the scheme relatively simple. So we know what we're doing 100% of the time, every play, and go from there. So,
you know, I'm actually really curious, man. I'm curious about a pro athlete's perspective, as far as like maybe NFL versus playing in college or playing in high school as far as football is concerned. Same thing with basketball. When you play in college or high school, like you kind of have a close relationship with your teammates because like y'all are the same age, it's school, there's camaraderie, blah, 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 right? But like when you get to the NFL and now, you know, you're older, you have a family, right? There's life, etc. Do teammates actually have strong bonds, or is it more of a professional thing where you get on the field, you go do your thing, all right, everyone's cool, and then you're out?
You get a little bit of both. You know, there was a little bit of that in college, like you kind of hung with your crew or whatever. The NFL is a little bit the same way. Like, you know, obviously the closer a team is, normally the better they are. And, this offseason, especially as an offensive line, we've been really trying to, build that camaraderie. Like we've been, if you social media stuff, we've been going to a lot of like Islander games. We've been going to dinners. We've been going, just doing whatever we can to, get close to each other. And especially as an offense line, man, like there's 5 guys, but you're working it as a unit. One, if you have one all-star offense lineman, it doesn't matter. That guy's going to get picked on games if his guard, let's say you got this all-world left tackle, if his guard's trash, he's getting picked on games. He's not going to be able to do what he does. No team's just going to let him go one-on-one with a DN when they know he's the best cat on the old line. So it takes all 5. And so you really do got to build that. And then you get tight with other guys on the team. A couple of us went golfing, there's wide receivers, the quarterbacks are always really tight with the O-line, which is funny. The age thing, we all live, or a lot of us live in like an apartment complex, like really close to facilities. So there's like a pool and stuff. So, the wives went to dinner or whatever. We're all chilling by the pool, having a beer. And Zach walks down. We're like, "What up, Zach?" We're talking to him. And he doesn't really drink or nothing. So we're just chatting it up. And I was like, "What were you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I was just upstairs playing VR." And we're all like, "Who plays VR?" We're like stuck on the Xbox stuff. And we're like, we're playing like Call of Duty and stuff. Like we just got off the sticks playing Warzone. And then he's talking about VR. So he brings it down, and most of us hadn't even played it. And so we're all like, it was funny. So you do get the age group, and I'm 28, which is young in a lot of worlds, but the NFL, it's starting to get up there, going into year 6. So definitely on the upper spectrum when a young cat's like, how many years have you been playing? And I'm like, going into year 6, like, man, that's crazy. I'm like, it's only 6, like it's not that long to be doing something, but NFL, it's kind of a long time. So, but so there is a little bit, but you definitely, the better your team is, the closer you are as a team. To get long-winded answer for your question there.
Gotcha. What does the off season look like for you? What have you been working on this year?
So summer's a little different. We just came out of OTAs and stuff. So you've been, it's an interesting thing because it's definitely lots on the strength conditioning, but you also have plenty of football stuff. So summer's kind of maintaining that. I like lifting relatively heavy, not like what I used to do. So I'm still, squatting, benching, deadlifting, snatch, clean, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of running, a lot of moving, just keeping your movement up. We just spent, 8, 9, 10, 12 weeks, whatever OTAs was, getting back in that football shape after, 3 months off. So, it's really these 40 days are really trying to maintain what you did and stay healthy and get ready for the season.
Have you been a guy that has traditionally needed like strength training and conditioning work, or when you were a kid, you just like mop everybody up regardless of how focused you were in the gym?
So I got a pretty long answer for this one. So high school, I'm from North Dakota. So that, the overall talent and depth, like just ain't there compared to Cali or Texas or Florida, Bama, Mississippi. So I was just, I was bigger than everybody. I was still fast. I was strong. I competed in North Dakota weightlifting. So it was squat, bench, and cleans actually, because all the strength coaches came together and were like, deadlift's how you get hurt. So we didn't deadlift. But so I just show up to the meet and I was, bigger than everybody, stronger than everybody. I loved it. I've been, weight training since I was a little kid. But it definitely caught up to me sometimes. I'd be there and, I wouldn't really want to do my box jumps after a squat or something. And my high school coach, fantastic guy, wouldn't be where I am today without Steve Lockway. He comes up to me and he goes, he was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm working out." He goes, "You've been sitting on that bench for 5 minutes now. I've been watching you." I was like, "Yeah, I'm just, getting my workout in." And he was like, "If you don't go D1, you're going to be ashamed of yourself." I was like, "Yeah, I talked to NDSU, my offer's coming in." He's like, "No, like I'm talking Power 5. He's like, "You're a Power 5 talent." So that kind of like, as embarrassed as I am to say it, I would little dog running a little bit. I would take the easy way just because I was bigger, stronger, and faster than everybody. But then I got to college and I was smaller, slower, and weaker than everybody. Well, I had the weight room. That's the only thing I had was I had good strength. And so then I dove in. I was all in on. I was like, well, I haven't had the experience because I haven't been playing the same talent. I gotta make up ground somewhere. So, I was in the weight room so much, they're kicking me out of the weight room. They would, then I'd go to the rec center. They sent an intern to the rec center to get me out of the rec center. So I dove in. I was like, well, strength is my strength. I'm just going to get stronger. I can win all the cardio rep or all the sprinting reps. So I was like, my goal is to win every sprint. I was that dickhead that would just take off running. And they're like, oh, run as a group. I was like, fuck these guys. I'm out of here. I'm going to be like, I got to be the best. Guys would always get mad. They're my friends, but they'd be like, can't you slow down? I'm like, dude, you guys are better than me when we go to practice. I got to win somewhere. And then I'd just hound my coaches. What can I do to get better? So I had a desk chair in my room. And I would just take steps before bed every night in college. Because I was behind the 8 ball. I remember my senior year, I was one of the top guards or centers projected in the draft. And he was like, man, when we recruited you out of North Dakota, we thought you'd be a 290-pound center that maybe plays your 5th year. And I ended up, not that I was a little bit better than that. So, it did, again, long-winded answer to answer your question. High school, I was I enjoyed it. So I trained a lot. I've been training since 4th or 5th grade. I've been competing in powerlifting competitions since 7th grade, 8th grade, maybe. I had a great strength and conditioning coach. He was actually a geared power lifter. And he was in a couple times. He was in, one of the powerlifting magazines. So I had great coaches all around me all the time. So definitely got lucky that way and blessed that way. So yeah, definitely was there.
How much bigger were you? Because if you're in Fargo, North Dakota, is the kid across from you, 5'8", 180? And how big were you in high school?
Yeah. So North Dakota's definitely different. So I'd get there'd be 1 or 2 guys on every team that was about my size. Now were they as athletic and strong as me? No. But they were, a couple of them were my size. But then the rest of them were, 5'10", 5'11", 180 to 200 pounds. We had, for our division, we had one of the bigger offensive lines in the state, and we did it different because of the scheme we ran. So our tackles were small and quick, and then you just got bigger. So our left tackle was 6'1", 190. Left guard was, the other guard, I guess it wasn't really left and right. You kind of just rotated to where the play was going. The other guard, Matt Martino, he's actually a power lifter now, and he was at West Point, and he was on the West Point powerlifting team. But anyway, so he was the other guard, and I think he was 6'2", 220, 230 in high school. The center went on to play college ball. He was about 6'3", 250. Then it was me, and I was 6'4", 275. But I could have easily been 300 pounds, but I got weighed every day because I had to play both ways. So my coach was like, hey, you're not coming off the field, so you're going to weigh 275 so you can be on the field. So I came off the field for kickoff and kick return. Else I was on the field. So I could have easily, which is kind of funny. So I got a call from Wisconsin, who was my school growing up. It was Wisconsin and Notre Dame were who I grew up loving. And call from Wisconsin. It was when Brett Bielema was the head coach, and he just loved monster offensive linemen. When he was at Wisconsin or Arkansas, his offensive line was 350. And he calls me, or the assistant line coach called me. He's like, hey, how much do you weigh? I was like, I'm 275. He was like, any way you could weigh 300 pounds? I'm like, yeah, but I'd have to go run my ass off at practice. I can easily get there. And he's like, Brett Bielma only let us offer a guy that's 300 pounds. And I was like, I wasn't fat at 275. Like I was in shape. And so anyways, I was 275, 6'4", 275. I think I got there my sophomore year. Freshman year, I was like 6'3", 230. And then sophomore year, I hit a big spurt and was 6'4",
big boy,
272. Yeah, always been big. My whole life, I've been big. I had to. Fourth grade's the first year that they, you can wear you have padded football in North Dakota, and I had to cut weight. I remember, I'll never forget this. I was been cutting weight for months. I was going into the weigh-in and I hadn't eaten in like 2 days. I was crying. My dad's like, you got to make this weight or you got to play it. And so it goes fourth grade and then it goes fifth and sixth graders are the next age group. Cause I think there's a big fall off between fourth and anyways. So I'd either have to play up 2 years if I didn't make this weight. So I'm like crying. I'm like naked in front of all these like moms bringing their kids in. And I'm like, and I made it by like, barely like a quarter of a pound. My dad's like, all right, we'll go get you a cheeseburger. Just put your pants on. Let's roll. So, I've always been a big kid.
Oh man. So, so in high school, you played offensive line. And then when you got to college, was that just the plan or did they have to move you around? And the reason why I ask is because it seems like, young athletes, especially their parents, want them to focus on like, no, you're the quarterback. Like that's all you do. And you're going to quarterback camp or whatever it may be. And then they get to college and someone's like, actually, no, you're going to have to be on special teams or something. So I'm curious, was that the same situation for you where you're just a big dude and they're like, no, we know exactly where to put you?
So I love D-line. So high school, like growing up, high school, I loved playing D-line. Like I loved getting after the quarterback, making the big tackle, making the goal line stand. And so I played both ways. So I always wanted to go and be a D lineman in college. And I would go to college camp. And to get recruited out in North Dakota, you have to go to camps, right? So like June, July, I was grinding to like college camps and to get noticed. And I'd like go to the D-line Indy and then the O-line coach, and I'd be headed to the O-line Indy, and the O-line coach would be like, you're an O-lineman. Like when we go to one-on-ones, like you play O-line. I was like, yeah, coach, but like I really like D-line. And every single camp I went to, every single coach was like, you're an offensive lineman. I was like, yeah, but nah, you're an offensive lineman. I was like, all right, I'll play O-line. So I learned to love it in college. High school, O-line I thought was like kind of boring just because I was bigger and faster and stronger. So I just grabbed dudes, throw them out of the way. I was like, this isn't fun. Like this wasn't all that challenging. I loved like chasing down a running back, getting after the quarterback, defeating a double team. So once I got to college, it was actually like incredibly hard and challenging for me. Then I learned to love the position. But yeah, I mean, I think that's such a bad thing that parents do to their kids these days is force them into one thing. If you ask any athlete, especially the good ones, like they'll tell you to play every sport. When you see an offensive lineman, you can tell if that kid grew up as a wrestler. You can tell if that kid grew up playing basketball. You can always tell like what a guy did before. Like we have a guy he's a tackle. He's from he's from Georgia. Chuma is his name. And he grew up playing soccer. And he has the fastest feet you've ever seen. Like he has when he does a pass set or run, like his feet are so fast and so quick. And you don't get that. If you just have practice offensive line, you weren't getting that same stimulus to have faster feet than everybody. So, when I start having kids and they'll play as many sports as I can get them into. Cause you have to develop your whole athletic ability has to be developed for when you're young to be a good athlete in whatever profession you want to be a professional athlete in.
What I was curious about, man, is like how you went about the mindset of dealing with your weaknesses, because you came from a place where you were the biggest guy, where you were the best guy, and then you get thrown into situations, not like in college especially, but then the pros where like you are now, like, yeah, you are bigger and strength is still your strength, but now there's a lot of more glaring weaknesses because there's so many people that have your same skill set. There's a lot of people that have a better skill set than you in certain areas. So how did you switch gears to be like, I'm not the biggest fish of the pond anymore now? What did you do to get better? Like, how did you turn that on if it wasn't on already?
just the coaches I had. So Mizzou and Pat Ivy, who in my opinion is one of the best strength coaches to ever do it. His crew would go up to West Side at least once a year. Back in like the early 2000s to 2010, so like the first decade of the 2000s, either him or someone from his tree won like head strength coach. And so they do this huge mental side, or they did, of like, like being positive and how to, and I guess I was just born with that drive that I wanted to be the best at something. And it still drives me. I haven't been all pro or Pro Bowl. I haven't won a Super Bowl, which is the biggest one. And, you get into year 6 and people ask me like, do you still love it? And I'm like, yeah, I think about it every day I wake up. It drives my wife nuts because it's off season and I want to get stuff done in the afternoon. But I set my alarm for 6 so I can get my workout in. Like I think I got lucky and I was born with it. And I just have this drive inside to be the best. Another thing though, is like the coaches I've had, the positive psychology stuff. And just, my head coach in high school, he was big on that positive mindset. So he'd always like make us read books and stuff. So I really got, I had a head start on the mental strength side. And I think besides my natural drive to be the best, which I get from my grandpa, who's a very incredibly successful businessman. He was a college football player and wrestler, and the big fish in a little pond saying is one of my favorites because he sat me down before I was going to leave. He's like one of the biggest boosters of a college here, all American for him. And he was like, hey, in their NAIS, he's like, Connor, like, you're going to head out. You're going to go from a big fish in a little pond here to a very little fish in a very big pond. He was like, there's a chance you're going to get swallowed up and never play a snap at Mizzou. He's like, I don't know why you just don't stay home, play 4 years here, set a bunch of records and come work on the farm and come work for the family. And I was like, Grandpa, I can't. Like, I've been working for the scholarship for the last 4 years and I got it and I'm going to go make the most of it. So, between the coaches, my parents just instilling that, like my dad, always had to be the best at everything, whether it was dirt biking or wakeboarding, snowboarding, skiing. Like my dad's always has to be the best at it. So I just been blessed with having a lot of people that, are addicted to being the best around me. And but I always like tell kids if I'm like talking to a camp or whatever is, it's who you have around you is how successful you're going to be. And then definitely don't let anybody tell you what you like, control what you're going to be. Cause my grandpa's one of the best guys ever, incredibly successful. And he was telling me like, hey, I don't know if you can go hack it with the big boys. Like you're from far North Dakota. And, I put that aside and I was like, Grandpa, like I can do this, and he wasn't being mean about it. He was being realistic. He didn't want me to go and burn 5 years of riding the bench and hating my life. And, he wanted me to be successful and he wanted me to play a lot of football and have fun doing it. And so I saw that. I didn't take that. I took that as motivation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, well, everybody's thinking I'm going to go and ride the pine for 5 years. Like I'm going to go out and do what I can. And so I'd be in coach's office at 6 a.m. I'd be the first one into the weight room, last one out. So yeah, it's just a huge combination of things that led to where I am today.
I think sometimes in being a parent, or I would imagine being a grandparent, that you sometimes view your child as, when they were like little, and so grandpa's probably thinking like, I've been around when this kid's pooping his pants and he's seen you cry and get upset and get frustrated with different things. And so he's probably just like out of just pure love, probably just like, man, I just want to protect you and try to give you this advice. So he's just trying to give you the best advice possible that he thought was, going to be something that would help you a lot. I'm wondering, have you ever had a welcome to the NFL moment, like where someone just whooped your ass and you're like, what the fuck was that? Like where it was too fast or too strong, or you maybe just didn't understand, what the other team was doing, play wise, and you just got overwhelmed or something like that.
Oh yeah, that happens like once a game. The NFL is like, the NFL is such a crazy, like the people that you see in the NFL are just absolutely unbelievable. Like I wish people could, you just only see it on game day and you see them going against the best. Like I just wish people could like see what these guys can do. So I got a couple of good stories. So like the biggest hit I've ever received, and it was my third game starting. We're playing the Redskins, and Kerrigan, I was guard, I was right guard. I sit on my D tackle. The D tackle kind of like gives me like a shiver and stops. And I was like, oh shit, there's a twist coming. And I open up, and before I could get there, the tackle didn't even touch Kerrigan. He ear-holed me so hard. I flew across the line of scrimmage, and I landed, and I look up, and I'm staring at the other tackle. So he knocked me all the way across the line of scrimmage. I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's wild. So, but then my rookie year, before I started, just the craziest thing. I mean, I was like kind of playing scout teams. So they had me at tackle, which is not what I'm built for. But I was kind of like filling in for this one practice, and I was going against Vaughn. And Vaughn and I, pretty good buddies. And we'd always sit and talk about hunting or whatever. And so we get on the line of scrimmage, and while they're going through the cadence, Vaughn's like, hey, I'm going to do this move to you. Try to stop it. They're like, all right, cool. I got this. Like, I know exactly what Vaughn's going to do. He would do it, and I couldn't even touch him. I'm like, this dude is so insane. I knew exactly what he was going to do. I planned on how I was going to stop it, still couldn't stop it. So, like, you just get such freak of natures that there's not a lot you can do sometimes. And like another thing on Vaughn, I remember it was like late in the game. It's like third down. We needed to stop, and the O-line's kind of standing there watching. And we all look at each other like, ooh, you see Vaughn right there? Vaughn's like doing that thing. I was like, this tackle's going to get broke off. And all of a sudden, Vaughn did some shit we've never seen before. Disgustingly freak of nature ability, and goes to sacks quarterback. We win the game. So it's like, you could just like sometimes look at a guy and be like, oh yeah, he's about to wreck somebody's day right here just because it's the NFL. And it happens every game. It's insane.
It's wild. Insane. So, I mean, it's kind of cheesy to say it now, but NFL stands for not for long. You're 6 years in. We hear about like the O linemen and the D linemen, how every time they clash, it's like a car accident. Then the CTE and all that stuff. How the heck have you been able to stay in the game so long at this elite level? Do you accredit it to the lifting, the training, or just do you do something better for recovery?
I think a lot of it. Well, there's a lot of factors. Been lucky. Knock on wood, haven't had many major injuries. All injuries I could come back from. I think a lot of it for myself is the lifting, and I think Olympic lifting has been huge for me. Really handling that, heavy load under max flexibility, I think has been huge for me. So, catching that snatch in the bottom, like a very deep snatch with my arms overhead, it's a lot of stress on your shoulders, but when your shoulders learn how to take, a lot of weight, a little bit of an awkward, obviously it's safe, like my my scap, the muscles are taking most of the load, but it's your hips when you're catching that, ass to ankles type of catch. And my best snatch was like 350, I think. So and I snatch up to at least 275 every time I snatch. So it's a lot of load in a big flexible position. So I think my joints are used to getting into that flexion under heavy load. And then also I do a lot of Olympic lifting. So for the head injuries, the CT and that kind of stuff, I've actually, another knock on wood, haven't had a concussion. So I think a lot of that is my traps are, I really do a lot of work on them with the cleans and the pulls and the deadlifts and the snatches. So I do have a little bit bigger traps, but that definitely helps with because for us, it's all I get this big Neanderthal rim on my forehead from my helmet pushing down during season. But it's most of ours is front head impact. So, the muscles here and your traps are helping control that. I think if I do get ear hold or something and I get hit in the side of the head, it's a totally different feeling. And I don't feel so good after those, where a wide receiver and running back, they take a lot more of those shots than we do. So it is a big difference there, but yeah, but between the way I train, recover, obviously it's funny when people really don't know about like recovery. They're like, oh, like, you know, in season, like, what do you like? Oh yeah, you know, I get 2 massages, I get needles, I do all this. Like, oh, that must be nice. I'm like, oh no, you don't understand. These massages are painful. Like, this is not a foo-foo hot rock, I'm going to make you feel good about yourself massage. Like, the masseuse is like laughing if they make you cry. Like, this is not a nice thing. But so, yeah, you know, we definitely do all that kind of stuff. And the older I get, the more time I seem to spend in the training room, just making myself feel better, or my body feel better. So yeah, it's everything at this point in my career. It's, yeah, I like to move a lot of weight, and I've definitely had to humble myself a lot and, you know, keep telling myself I'm not a power lifter, I'm a football player. So, yeah, definitely been a learning experience these last couple off seasons.
You know, it's funny. I guess when you look at some people in the fitness industry, when they talk about like athletes or professional athletes, especially in the NFL, first, I don't think they realize how freakish these athletes are or the way they can move or how big and strong they are. But a lot of people just have this idea that, a majority of the athletes on the NFL are on some type of drugs or PEDs or whatever. And it's just like, do you not realize that the caliber of human that reaches that level, like, they don't need that shit. They're just like all freaks. Like when you were talking about your freshman weight, what, 6'2", 230? Like that makes no sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like you like look at a Von Miller. He's just like, you look at like Von's quads and he is like bodybuilder or like the physique category. Like his quads look like that, but he doesn't really squat. He does some squats every once in a while. He does a lot more mobility stuff. He's just built like that. Like everybody always says he's kind of like Gumby. So if you put like a folding table up, right? Like, you know, like a card table, Von can damn near run full speed, get to the table, duck underneath it and stand back up and not lose a mile per hour. Like he's that flexible and he can move that fast under flexibility. Like no drug's going to let you do that. Like right. there's nothing you can put into your body that's going to allow you to do that. And that's just who he is. Or like, there's just guys that can like walk into a weight room and like, you know, they got a bad shoulder or whatever. So they don't really bench very much. And they're not taking anything, but they get onto the bar. They're just like, yeah, throw 315 on. I'm like, dude, you haven't benched in like 3 months. Like, yeah, I think I can do it. Knock out 10 reps. Like, all right, we'll see you later. And they walk out of the weight room. You're like, they're just gifted. Like there's somebody just asked me like how many guys in the NFL are like gifted athletes and how many of them work hard. Depending on what you recruit, like a team brings in, but there's a lot of, you got to have both. Like you're going to get to you can get to the NFL and God-given talent, but then you got to work hard to, you know, maintain it. But it's really hard to get there without any God-given something, whether it's God-given speed or size or arm length or like you got to have something. God had to give you something. And so, yeah, and I mean, we get drug tests all the time. I got to type into a website wherever I travel so they can drug test me wherever I go. So yeah, like the NFL knows I'm in Park Rapids, Minnesota at my parents' lake place. Cause if they wanted to, they could send somebody from Minneapolis over to drug test me at any time. So
Von Miller is a completely ridiculous athlete. But it's no coincidence that he uses a slingshot. Have you ever used, have you ever used a slingshot yourself?
Oh yeah. So I actually, have DM'd slingshot a bunch on Instagram, especially when I was a poor college kid. And you guys were awesome and sent me a whole bunch of care packages. We actually used them in college. So you guys sent me knee sleeves and I always seem to have hamstring problems. So I use a lot of the hammy bands. Cool. We actually, I mean, and as you know, I've been friends with Justice. We use a ton in the jets, hip circles every day. I love the slingshot. I had a shoulder surgery and tore my pec in college. So I used a slingshot a ton recovering from those 2 injuries. I use the gangster wraps every time I bench. Definitely. Big fan of slingshot. Use it a ton. I have a jacked and tan tank. I wish I would have known where it is. I would have put it on. So no, I've been a big fan of you guys for a long time.
What do you think about Von Miller giving you a makeover, having him dress you? Because he wears some really amazing outfits.
I don't think I could pull that off. I have my own type of swag. I don't have on swag. So yeah, he's a pretty remarkable dresser. That's for sure.
Outside of like, because like right now, I'm guessing you're not in season, but what do you do, or where do you spend your time outside of training and outside of focusing on stuff when it comes to sport? Do you have other things that you are really interested in? Other things that like you plan on doing, going into more after you get out of the NFL?
Yeah. So besides like the football and the training aspect, my favorite hobby is cars. I'm a huge car guy. I love everything, buying, selling, modifying, racing, cruising, anything to do with cars. I love. And then, you know, my family farms potatoes and sells John Deere tractors. So in the early spring when we're not doing anything, I come back here and you know, help out and try to learn a thing or two.
That probably doesn't surprise your teammates that you're a farm boy.
No, not at all. Not at all. So yeah, so that's what I kind of do, you know, because I want to come back and farm and stuff. So I, you know, got to learn that trade too. And but then besides, you know, my favorite hobby of cars and learning my, you know, next adventure after football is just hanging out with friends, family, my wife, our 2 dogs, just kind of doing everyday stuff. And, you know, I don't worry too much about like, cause some people like act like, oh, you should like, they'll see me like, you know, riding a bike or I'll wake surf or, you know, ride a go-kart or something. And they're like, don't you have to like, if you get hurt, won't you like, I'm like, I mean, they could, like the way it's written in our contract is if you get hurt doing anything, not everyday activities. So like if you got in a car accident, you know, you're covered. But if you go out and, you know, you're hooping and you tear your ACL, the team doesn't legally have to cover you. So like if I was, you know, wake surf, I don't know if anybody's wake surf, but it's one of like the safest activities to do on the water. You're going like 8 miles an hour. You're behind a boat. Like it's super safe, but you know, let's say some jet skier comes and hits me, well, because they weren't paying attention or lost control. You see those videos all the time on YouTube. They run into boats and shit. But then technically they wouldn't have to cover. Like I could lose my my contract and I could lose health insurance. So it's like, you know, you can't. But I'm not going to live my life as a hermit just because something might happen. And for the most part, the teams like, unless you're being super ridiculous, they're not going to cut you off of that kind of stuff. But like if you've had problems of like you're constantly playing basketball and you're constantly getting hurt playing basketball, you know, they might have a problem with that. So yeah, you know, when I'm not training and doing football, just, you know, doing what everybody else does. And I love, you know, being at the lake, hanging out with friends, family, wife, and doing a lot of little bit more probably on the extreme end of sports with like the go-karts, wake surfing and all that kind of stuff. That's what I grew up doing. Grew up being a dirt bike racer. So,
oh, sheesh.
Dude, you got to tell us about the R34, your GTR. I just saw it on your Instagram. That shit looks sick.
Yeah. So my R34 GTR is, it's my like car that I go to the track. So I don't like race cars. But I go to the track every once in a while. I will like, they have like a racetrack has like, they call it DE days or open track days. So I go and, you know, go out, race around. There'll be like Porsches out there, Corvettes, whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's a fully built, RB was, you know, stroked out to RB 28.
Jesus.
Has like 750 horsepower, all 4 wheels. It's pretty fun. It's my one of my babies for sure. It's my baby.
Yeah, I mean, I like the new one that you have, but I'm just always a fan of the old school JDM stuff. I used to drift 240s back in the day, but I don't know, man. If you ever have a chance, Thunder Hill Raceway up here in Northern California is pretty sick. We still have Infineon, which is an amazing track, but I'm always partial to Thunder Hill because that's where I blew one of my engines, and then, you know, I had a lot of memories on that track.
Yeah, I'm a big JDM guy, so I got you know, one of my big things in the that I do in my spare time is invest in a JDM importer dealership. So I mean, I got the Veris demo car Supra coming in from Japan in like a week. So that'll be up for sale, because I'm a GTR guy. So I got like the R32, R33, R34, R35, all for different things. I got big car guy.
That's so sick, dude. I'm looking at the Super right now. That shit's incredible.
It'll be sick, and it'll be, but I'm not a huge Super guy, so I kind of got it at a good price, and I'm importing it. So yeah, it'll be up for sale here soon, and somebody that loves Supers will have a lot better time with it than I will.
Got to check out Provost Motorsports. You ever seen those guys?
Yeah. Yep.
That's my buddy Sean Provost. He's way into a lot of that stuff. He races cars, and he's got I think he has one of the fastest cars in the world. He's got he bought a brand new Porsche not too long ago.
Yeah. My dad's a big Porsche racer. He races PCA. We grew up racing dirt bikes. My dad's broken his neck twice on two wheels. So he's moved to four wheels, which seems to be a little safer. So the family's big time, racers, gearheads, extreme sports. Growing up, the X Games was like our Super Bowl. We loved the X Games. It's all we would watch. So yeah.
I'm just curious, if I was a young athlete listening in and I was listening to what you were talking about, I'd be wondering what are some of the big skills that I need to focus on really trying to build in being a teenager, right? So weightlifting, etc. What do you think are some big pillars that a young football player should try to go into college having a good amount of experience with? I know positions are different and stuff, but there should be some common through lines where you don't want to be in college and I don't know shit about this.
Yeah. I think, there's some obvious ones. You need to have some understanding of the weight room. You don't want to be that kid that, you get a D1 scholarship and you go in the weight room and you got everybody's hitting, I can't say a perfect form squat, but everybody's hitting, at least parallel depth, and you're doing quarter squats because you thought squats are bad for your knees, or you go to bench and you don't. You do have to find that full range of motion. You do have to just have basic understanding of strength, and I think the biggest thing is you gotta you need to find a good coach to just get the base down. I think a great story is Travis Mash. He had that high school kid that did that awful clean, and everybody was just ragging on this kid on social media. And you're like, well, clearly the kid has never been coached. The dude was 15, 16, 17. So Travis grabbed him and started coaching him virtually and got the kid going right. And so I think that from a strength standpoint is a super important. And I think most high schools nowadays, high schools have caught up to college, which caught up to the NFL. You got to have a good strength coach. Most of them have weightlifting courses. I know I went to a small Catholic school in far North Dakota, and we had weightlifting classes, and we have a great strength and conditioning program. And then obviously base of conditioning and base running form. But the one that I like to get to that people don't focus on and lose so much is flexibility. There's a ton of cats in the NFL that are, you watch from the weight room, you're like, this cat's a professional offensive lineman. You think of offensive lineman, you think of bench pressing 500 pounds, squatting 600, but this kid can rep 225 for 10 or 12. This kid can barely squat 405, but you put him on the football field and he's so flexible and he has power under that in odd positions, and he never loses a rep because he can get into any odd position he can, but he's so fluid and he's so flexible and he's so smooth that he's just going to get back in the right spot. Where you get some cat, you go into a weight room and the dude has no arch in his back and he's just flat back, legs up, benching 515 for 10, but he goes out on the field and he's stiff as a board and he has no flexibility and he can't block shit. 1 out of 10 reps, he's going to throw his hands and hit a dude in the chest, and the dude's going to fall over and be like, wow, that was fucking superhuman. But the other 9 reps, the guy's going to give him something quick and he's going to look like an idiot. So I think the most important, and it's with any position, you need the strength, you need the speed, but people get so focused on that they lose the flexibility and the fluidness of being a professional athlete. Because you look at any sport and you're like, damn, that was smooth, or damn, that was cool. And whatever is cool is normally because it was smooth and fluid and it looks sick. And that's just, most sports people, if you're the really good ones, which is also a God-given talent. Like I was talking with Vaughn or whoever, like if you're really, or good offensive line guy to look at that's super flexible is Zach Martin with the Cowboys. They also call him Gumby because he'll be like 1 foot in the air, like a hand in an awkward spot. And he's like bent in half, but he's still blocking the guy because he's so flexible and his movement's so good. So, I think a lot of high school kids get caught up in being the fastest or the quickest or the strongest, and they lose the flexibility that it takes to be a professional athlete.
What has giving back to your community done for you? I know that you're involved in some charities and stuff like that. What has that done for you over the years?
Oh, it's been huge. I've really gotten into it the last 2 years. Coronavirus kind of killed it the first year we were going to do it, but it's called the Able Games. Clearly, I'm a huge competitive guy. I've made my living off of loving competition. So I wanted to give back and something that I love. So that we the TNT, which is a kids gymnastics gym, was what it started out to be. So over the last 20 years, they've figured out that a gymnastics gym has the right equipment to help people with special needs get physical activity, because in this, people with special needs are one of the biggest problems, just like in everyday life, or an able-bodied person, is obesity. They just don't have that ability to go out and move because a gym could be dangerous for them. They don't know like the sensory stuff. So TNT started doing it with the gymnastics gyms. Well, then they kind of moved in and realized like a CrossFit gym where you can scale something to, no matter if you're like a games athlete or you're, have a bound to a wheelchair, you can compete in some sort of way. So the Able Games is a fitness competition that has people with special needs and, to games athletes competing on the same floor. And it's to raise money for TNT so they can, reach out to more schools, to more, group homes, get more people in, and also to raise money so we can go out and we can make a program to, implement it where, like your gym could get a trainer certified or get our certification and get our training. And then you can have that weird, well, you have a bunch of powerlifters, so you guys are busy all day, but a lot of gyms have that lull hour where not professional fitness people are not working out, so they can fill their gym with a group of people with special needs to come in, and you can coach them and get them moving once or twice a week. And it's been awesome. So we've had our first competition. We raised over $1 million. We had 150 athletes competing, and to see somebody doing a 225 shoulders to overhead, and then a young man in a wheelchair doing shoulders to overhead with a PVC pipe right next to each other, going rep for rep, it was sweet. It was way sicker than we could have imagined. We knew it was going to be a cool event, help a lot of people, and it was going to be great. But to actually witness that at the same time going on was way more special than we could have ever imagined. So it's been a great experience. It's been something that my wife and I like to do in our free time to, it's really kind of taken off and growing, and a lot of people are getting involved and want to help. So, we're going to try to take it to the moon. So we're excited.
That's sick. I kind of want to revisit that conversation you had with your grandfather. I feel like there's hundreds of thousands of stories similar to yours where, you're the big kid in high school and, somebody tells you like, hey, college is a whole nother animal. And that same kid's like, no, I'm going to show you. That small fish goes to the big pond and they don't end up playing for the New York Jets. You had mentioned, working hard. You had mentioned God-given talent, but is there something different about you that was able to, not be the strongest guy, or I guess you were the strongest guy, but not be the best guy on the team anymore and still kind of overcome all these adversities where other athletes, they have that, they think they're going to do that, but it just seems like you had something extra. Can you, and then maybe Mark and Nsima can help me formulate this question better, but is there something else about you, and is there something else about pro athletes that take all this adversity and just flip it around and just overcome everything that just comes their way?
Yeah, the perseverance aspect of being a professional athlete, I don't know how to I've thought about this actually a lot. Like, I don't know how to, train somebody to persevere. I have seen that guys that come from, and actually it's kind of funny. So I told you my grandpa was a successful businessman. So like my family has, we're not hurting for our next meal on our plate. And that was actually my biggest knock coming into the NFL. So my rookie year in the NFL, it's like week 2. I was kind of like, I made the 53, but like I wasn't getting like any reps as like with the, first team. And I thought like I had a pretty good camp. So I was like, hey, I texted my coach, like, hey coach, could I come talk to you? It was like a Wednesday, like before practice or before meetings, and just see where I can improve. He was like, yep, be at my office at 7. I was like, perfect. So I get there, 6:55. I walk in. I'm like, hey coach, how's it going? He's like, good. How are you doing? I was like, good. He was like, so what's up? I was like, we got a couple injuries. Like, I'm wondering what I got to do to kind of get my foot in the door so I can maybe get a rep with the ones here or there, and maybe, start playing. And he was like, well, I don't think you'll ever play for me. And I was like, why is that? He was like, well, you come from money, so I think you're going to quit on me in the fourth quarter. And I was like, did I quit in college? Did you ever see that on my film? He was like, no, your college film is pretty good. You always worked hard, didn't matter the score of the game. You fought through it. I was like, okay. I was like, did I quit in camp? He was like, no, you had a really good camp. I thought, you're a better player than I thought you were. I was like, okay, so like, how can I get on? He's like, well, I don't know. I don't trust somebody that comes from money. He was like, here, look, I literally wrote it in my draft book. So he pulls out this big binder of all the offensive linemen in my draft, flips the page to Connor McGovern, and he starts reading. He's like, I don't believe he'll make it in the NFL. I think he comes from money. He doesn't know how to work hard. He doesn't know how to persevere. And I don't think we should pick him, but they drafted me anyways. And I was like, so there's nothing I can do. He's like, nope. I was like, all right, I will see you later. When I walked out of his office, I called my agent and I was like, we might need to try to find a new team. And he was like, you're stuck. He was like, you're there for the next 4 years until they cut you. So I was like, well, and I was like, sir, we're farmers. Like, we got lucky with some really good years. We have some really bad years. Like, nothing was just given to me. Didn't matter how much money was in the bank account. We're still blue collared farmers. Like, my parents didn't spoon feed me shit. Like, we're farmers. And so back to your, I guess I grew up with that, like, we had some really tough years in the farming growing up. And I don't know how to coach perseverance, but when my coach said that, I was the type of person where that just made me work harder. That made me set my alarm clock a half hour earlier. So I was the first guy in the building, sitting in the hot tub when, like, I was in the hot tub before right as the first athletic trainer was walking in. My car was one of the first cars in the parking lot. So instead of that, bringing me down and putting me in a slump and I started playing poorly, or I lost belief in myself or what have you, it made me work harder. So I don't know how to, I've definitely thought of it before, because I wish I could say something to like a group of kids and be like, hey, when it gets tough, you just got to get here and get in this mindset to do this. So you could, I don't know. I think I could, if I could harness that, I think I could be a really rich man and sell a lot of books. Yeah, it's a great question. And it's something that, I don't know if you guys have any insight on how, to word that better. Yeah, I'm not sure. But it's just a perseverance aspect that a lot of professional athletes have. And I just saw the trailer for the new Kurt Warner movie. And I mean, his story, he's persevered through more shit than anybody I've ever seen to get to the NFL. So, yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you.
I think
it's just perseverance.
I think your interpretation of being discriminated against was to just work harder and prove yourself. Oh, you think this of me? Maybe because of the color of your skin, and maybe because of your background. potentially. These are all things that somebody thought of you. They were preconceived notions that the guy had a hard time letting go of. And you're like, well, I guess the only way there's nothing else you can do about it. I mean, what are you going to do?
Right.
Are you going to quit? Because if you quit, he's like, all right, well, there's the proof. But if you show your fellow teammates and stuff like that, what a great teammate you are. I mean, after a while, it just becomes undeniable. Did you eventually end up playing for that coach, or did you end up going to a different team?
No, I didn't end up playing for him. He, the head coach, Gary Kubiak, ended up kind of getting sick that year, and he retired as the head coach, and a new head coach came in, and they brought in a new offensive line coach. So I actually after that, I had coaches that were on the previous staff. On that staff came up to me and was like, hey, like, I apologize for how that guy treated you. Like, what he would say in the meetings, really, like, so he'd go up to like the meetings. So like in the NFL, like, you have a practice, all the coaches sit around a table with like the GM and the head scout or whatever, and the head coach, and they go through practice. They talk about each guy. And I guess like he would just dog on me. And so even if I had a good play, he would like kind of cover it up. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, but and just with what you were saying, made me think of it a little bit is, I always wanted to, it was like a chip on my shoulder, whether it was, my grandpa saying it out of love or this coach saying it out of a preconceived notion. I just took, you might not make it, put that chip on my shoulder and carried it and just worked harder because I wanted to prove everybody wrong. It's an interesting thing about how your brain works and how different people, take information in and then make it how they interpret it and makes them do something. So, everybody in the NFL, if they haven't had adversity, they find it their freshman year and it makes or breaks them. And actually the Seahawks have this weird algorithm that they use to see if someone's had enough adversity to make it in the NFL. So it is something that scouts and teams look at is, if this guy's kind of just been pushed his whole career, some teams won't draft him no matter how talented he is, because if you haven't gotten it yet, you're going to find it in the NFL, and it'll either make you or break you. And, a lot of athletes, like, to make it in this profession, you got to let those hard times make you instead of break you, which I think to be successful in anything, you got to take the hard times and they got to make you or instead of break you.
What I love about what you just told us was there's so many people that, I would have made it to that D1 school, but my damn high school coach, he just had it out for me. Mm-hmm. And here you are in the NFL, and, who knows what that coach actually, what he was thinking, but it appeared that he just had it out for you, but you just, I guess you took ownership of the whole situation. You're just like, no, I'm just going to get better. I'm going to be undeniable. And unfortunately, it took a whole new coaching staff, to get you on the field. But that's incredible that you didn't blame anybody else. At least it appears that you didn't blame anybody else. You just kept grinding.
Yeah. I tried to do everything I could to, I going back to like having good coaches, my high school coach, his whole thing was, control what you can control. I couldn't control that, the coach thought that, I would quit in the fourth quarter. Like I did whatever I could do to prove it. And I was just going to keep doing whatever I could do to prove that I wouldn't do it. So, it's kind of goes back to all the basic sayings and all the, a self-help book or whatever. It's just control what you can control, persevering and not letting those things bring you down and get you negative. Because, I'm a big believer in, the way you think or what you believe is what's going to happen, or what you believe is what you're going to achieve. I think it's probably on a million t-shirts. But as corny as it sounds, I definitely think that is a huge, huge part of success and how to get there.
It's an interesting thing because I would imagine every single player in the NFL, once you do make the team, starts to develop some pretty good financial stability. So with his logic, I mean, Le'Veon Bell and all the other players that were on the Jets, at the time or whatever, they would also quit in the fourth quarter,
Yeah, this was actually on the Broncos. So I was 4 years on the Broncos before the Jets, but this is my first year on the Broncos. They're coming off a Super Bowl. So yeah, that whole team was very financially stable. So yeah, it is interesting. It is interesting logic. But yeah, it's weird, man. They find out before you get drafted, they find out every bit of information about you. No one's had their background checked harder than a kid trying to get drafted in the NFL. So, yeah, it is. People's logic's funny sometimes. It really is.
Yeah, I know you never had anything so obviously your family's done well, but hearing that, and obviously you did already work very hard. Did you ever, in your youth or going through high school, did you ever seek out things to be harder? I know they weren't necessarily easy for you either, because you're farmers, you guys work, but did you ever need to seek out difficulty because maybe there was a lack of difficulty in certain areas? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know. I think I always did difficult things growing up. So my brother is like 6'2", 180 pounds. And this dude hops on anything with a motorcycle or board, and he's a freak. My cousin, who's a month older than me, is the same way. It doesn't matter if it's a video game or they just hop on it and they're so naturally good at it. And I wasn't, I was huge. Like I was like 12 racing 28-year-olds because I had to the bike for my age group couldn't hold my fat ass. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't grow up everything I tried. I was doing what my dad did. My dad's 5'11", 190 pounds. So our bodies were super different, but I wanted to be like my dad. So me snowboarding or wake surfing or wakeboarding or dirt, it just wasn't easy for me growing up. And so I guess that's another thing that goes back to, where I get my mindset from is kind of built. I've just been doing it my whole life. I want to be like my dad, or I want to be better than my little brother. So I'm going to just, I'm not built for it, but I'm sure as hell going to try to be really good at it. And so it's an interesting thing. My friends and everybody are starting to have kids, and it is interesting to look back and see what forms a kid, if my family was only into football and I was naturally good at that my whole life, would I be able to persevere the way I do? But I don't know. So it's interesting. So, yeah. So I don't know if I outwardly seeked it. But I did want to be I do enjoy being a small fish in a big pond and growing into that pond. I do really enjoy that. Growing up in the area, family done I had this drive to not be introduced all the time as this is, Ron Offit or Keith McGovern's son. I want to be, hey, introduced as this is Connor McGovern. He played in the NFL, or hey, this is Connor McGovern. He did this, not he's the son of or the grandson of, you know what I'm saying? So I guess that was a big driver for me too. And yeah, it is interesting how everything kind of every experience in your life kind of builds to who you are once you're 30 years old.
A cool thing about snowboarding, wakeboarding, a lot of the things you mentioned, the only way to have fun at those things, and even racing and some of the other things you're interested in now, the only way to have fun at those things is to be skilled at them. You have to, you have to fall down a bunch. You have to mess up a bunch, and then you have to, and if you're young and you're trying these things, it could be super upsetting, sit there in the snow crying to yourself. But the other option, you're you look around and you're like, everyone else is enjoying themselves. I should probably just stop being a bitch, and I should get up and I should just learn how to do this, and I could have fun like the other kids are. And so it's an interesting and fun kind of training tool, but the challenge that it gives you, I think, is great, because it shows you right away, if you want to have fun, and if you want to have fun at just about anything, one of the best ways to have fun is to kick everybody else's ass in it, or to at least be good at it enough so you can enjoy yourself doing it.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a great point. And definitely had a lot of moments of, and so my family is way into it. So my wife didn't grow up skiing or anything. And so but she has a really good work ethic and huge drive. So like she calls it like ski boot camp. So like we go out and like she would ski all day. Like her toenails would turn black from like pushing into her boots so hard learning to ski. So yeah, I mean, it's a goal, like you said. Growing up, I think it did help, shape a lot of my work ethic and who I am. And yeah, it is really interesting. Yeah. It also helps with balance. So another thing high school athletes could work on is balance. Balance and flexibility are, I call them like the big five. You have like speed, strength, quickness, balance, and flexibility. And I feel like the two latter ones aren't trained enough. Especially in young athletes, which then you get to the NFL, most of us have good enough speed, strength, and quickness. All everybody trains now is flexibility and balance, because that's, we have a great base in the other three. Get to the NFL, those are the two things you end up training the most, because that's where you're lacking the most once you get to this stage.
Being in the league for 6 years and starting to get maybe a little bit older, or somewhere in the middle of the pack in terms of where you are with your teammates. What do you think of someone like Tom Brady, who's in like his mid 40s and still playing?
I don't even have a word to describe what he's doing now. Like, it is remarkable. And, no guy in the NFL wants to play Tom Brady. Like, doesn't matter. He could be on any team in the entire country. You don't want to play Tom Brady. You're like, there's going to be no easy moment. It's going to be a 60-minute fist fight. Like, it is mind blowing to me how he can still do it and be that competitive. And because people, like when someone's really good at something, like there's a lot of people in the world that like don't like him. Like people hate LeBron James even though he's a freak, or you don't like the Lakers when they were dominant, or. So everyone's like, oh, Tom Brady. And you like ask an NFL guy, they're like, oh no, he's a freak. Like, I love watching Tom Brady play. Like, the dude's an animal. You know what I'm saying? So it's every guy in the NFL has an incredible amount of respect for Tom Brady. It's mind blowing what he can do.
When's the season start?
July 27th is our first day of camp. Go in, get a bunch of physicals, strap up, and get after it on the 28th.
Awesome, man. Well, good luck with this season. I hope it's a season that the Jets fans can be can be proud of.
I trust me. I last year, man, like I've never experienced something like that in my life. So I think I'm really, everybody's. I've never been around a team more determined and more fired up to get going. And it was one of the best OTAs I've been a part of, just from no complaining, hardworking, getting after it standpoint. So we're definitely laying the base. So I think you'll see some turnaround this year, and in the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to be pretty special over there for sure.
What's your Instagram so some people can follow along with some of the stuff we talked about today?
McGovernator 60. I could probably smell it. Yeah, I was a huge Arnold fan. I went to the Arnold Classic. I actually got to shake your hand there one year, and I got to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger in that same year. So Great. It was a big year for me. I actually got a Arnold tank top on it. I just got done with my workout before this.
There you go.
Hey. Big Arnold fan, so I kind of stole his name from my Instagram, man.
Awesome. Great having you on
high school or whatever it was.
Great having you on the show
guys.
today.
Appreciate it.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We learned a lot today. That was great.
That coach was a dick.
Man, that was weird.
Wow. Yeah. Like, oh, you come from money. You're not going to work hard.
Guess at least he was honest about it.
Brutally honest. Like, I mean, usually somebody would hide something like, there's this or there's, but he's just like, nah, you came from money.
Yeah. You just say like, oh, you don't have what we're looking for at the moment. You figure, right? But
then it's like, why did you draft him?
Yeah, right.
If you knew.
I think he got drafted, maybe that guy's just going off of previous experience.
Could be.
Like that he had, or maybe he didn't grow up with money. Maybe he grew up, with circumstances that weren't great, and maybe he takes it out on other people. But you figure somewhere in the chain of coaching and administration, they would be like, you can't act that way. Like, that's not
right.
That doesn't make any sense. I mean, to me, it's discrimination, right? I mean, It wouldn't be any different if you discriminated against anyone else for any other reason. It just doesn't make sense. You should be able to play, you should have access to the field if you're able to play a little bit better than some of the other people. And if you're on the team, you should certainly have access to being able to play at some point. Like, you're too slow. You know, oh shit, okay. He's kind of right. Like, I need to be faster. You know, you weigh too much. You weigh too little. You could point out many, many things, but if you start to meet some of those requirements, it's like, okay, well now why am I not on the field?
I hate gatekeepers. Like, gatekeepers annoy me, and gatekeepers are the people that, like, they have something or they have some type of position of power, but they choose, like, they choose to knock on certain people, not because of maybe their lack of skill or their lack of ability, but plainly because of maybe who they are, where they come from, or something like that. And they just make things unnecessarily difficult for those people.
And it's amazing when you meet people that share. And they don't care that much.
Yeah.
You know, you meet someone like Ron Penna and he'll sit there and explain to you how to make protein bars because he just doesn't give a fuck. Usually when you meet people that are on a high level, they normally don't care that much. They're normally like, I'm going to show you, you know, or if you want to know, I'll explain to you how I did this almost exactly, because I'm not fearful that you're going to do a better job than me. A lot of times when I share stuff with people, I'm kind of hoping that they do a better job than me. Even just in starting super training, I've always wanted people to be stronger than me. And if you look at a lot of the numbers on the board from my competitive powerlifting years, I don't have the biggest bench. I don't have the biggest squat. I do have the biggest total, but I don't have the biggest. I don't have the biggest deadlift. So there was other people that came through that were stronger in at least those individual lifts.
Yeah. The hard thing about Kubiak though, so the coach at that time, they had just come off a Super Bowl win. So he had a lot of pull, but still, that's gross. That sucks,
dude. You got to bring up some pictures of Von Miller.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen Von Miller before. Like
he trained at Cal Strength for a bit.
Really?
I found an amazing picture of him right here.
Oh, wow! That is wow. He reminds me of Russell Westbrook as far as his style.
He's all naked.
But I'm curious about his body now, because I didn't know Von Miller was built like that. Like,
he's just wearing all kinds of different weird stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, could you pull up some Von Miller bod pics?
I'm working on it. Check these out.
So what?
Oh, why is he naked?
I don't know.
Wow.
But he's a naked.
All right, pull up the one on the guitar. I need to see those quads.
I know,
we were talking about these.
Dude, did he grow out his hair like that?
Nah.
Or is that somebody else?
Nah, he's wearing something, or maybe it's edited.
I was like, that's sick if he did that.
Yeah. How tall is he?
Why is it?
He's got to be 6'3".
Why is it so small? That's not what I mean. The picture.
It's got to be 6'3", 6'4".
Let's see.
Oh, maybe if I go.
But I think he was the NFL or he was the Super Bowl MVP one year.
Yeah.
Which is really rare for a defensive player.
Yeah.
But he was completely unstoppable that year, and in that Super Bowl,
the greatest show on turf.
Yeah,
he said he was Oh snap! He does.
Where the fuck
does have some mean quads.
Especially for being a taller guy. You know, he's not going to have like a crazy amount of mass, but he is built.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy, man. Yeah, that's wild.
Freak of all freaks.
Now I'm curious. I'm going to go watch some Von Miller clips to see how this guy moved.
No, it's nasty.
It is nasty.
It really is.
That's the thing, man. It's like, I think that's one interesting thing, you know, like a lot of athletes or like pro athletes usually try to go towards pro sports. And if they end up there, they're not going to be doing like when an athlete that, like, for example, I think a great example of this is like Russ Swole. So like he played football, he got injured, but he was football built. And then he just chose to go towards powerlifting, and he's demolishing the 83s. I feel like, I know that if any of these athletes in the NFL were just like, I feel like powerlifting, they'd come in and wreck house.
It would be, it would be ugly.
Yeah, you know? Or even bodybuilding.
A friend of mine from years ago, Al Caslow, he just smashed all like the 181 records. He was a smaller athlete, so he used to tell me he played football, and I was like, oh, cool. But I didn't know he played for like the fucking Philadelphia Eagles. He was like a kickoff and punt returner. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was ridiculous. He was a little heavier when he played. But yeah, he came into powerlifting and just, he broke all-time world records, and I think he squatted 900 pounds. I mean, he was just unreal athlete all around. It never hurts to be a better athlete.
Never.
I mean, it can only be helpful to be a better athlete, and you can see it across the board. And actually, you kind of notice a common theme. I don't know if it's because I recognize it because of your soccer background, but we keep hearing, like, time and time again, people keep mentioning soccer. And being somebody that has been to many kind of youth sports events, like, not much happens unless you're playing something like soccer, because volleyball takes like a certain skill level to be able to knock the ball around enough to where you're moving around a lot to develop other skills. So if you play volleyball for a long time, well, then of course, you can develop some skills, but you need to be like, you got to be like 12 years old or something to have a decent, halfway decent game of volleyball, And I know someone listening might be like, my 8-year-old, whatever. I get it. There are younger kids that develop faster.
Your kid's a phenom.
Yeah. And there's kids that go to camp and they take it real serious from the time they're 5. And I understand all that. But like, I actually think that I think youth baseball is, and even youth football to a certain extent, unless you're playing like flag football or something like that, I think a lot of these sports are kind of useless. It's I don't know. It's almost like going to like a pageant. It reminds me of that, because you're like, I don't really know. Is this a choice for these kids?
Especially T-ball.
Yeah, it's just, but the kid could honestly legitimately be interested in the sport by himself. But I think that sports are great activities for children for many, many different reasons, being on a team and all that stuff. But if you're trying to get your kid more activity, I would not recommend that you put him into baseball. I would not recommend that you put him into volleyball. A flag football thing might be a good place to start. Soccer might be a good place to start. Gymnastics is a great place to start. Gymnastics is really awesome, because it's a way to almost auto-regulate body weight control without getting nuts about it. Now, you can get nuts about it, because someone can go deep into gymnastics and things can get weird with like young kids dieting, but like, you'll move better in gymnastics if you're not heavy. Yeah. So if you have a child doing it at 2 or 3 years old, before they eat a lot of processed foods and things like that, they might be able to kind of hold on to some of that flexibility, mobility, strength, as they get older and older.
Yeah. And like, I remember when I was in like elementary school, and I was pretty tall for my age. I was definitely one of like the taller kids in school, or not in school, but just like I said, for my age. And I just remember the guys that were like my height were like super goofy. Like, they could not dribble a basketball. They couldn't even like run straight. And I grew up playing soccer, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Eventually everyone, finally got their bearings in line and all that.
Basketball's pretty good youth sport too.
So that's what I was going to say, is basketball is kind of a similar thing, where it teaches a lot of hand-eye coordination. The problem with the really young kids is you just get this like mosh pit of kids going all around the court, trying to shoot the ball, and nobody, just air balls all day long. And soccer's kind of the same thing.
It's a mosh pit of kids chasing a ball.
Just kicking the ball back and forth, but at least, everyone's looking down and they're trying to kick something, and then with basketball, they're looking down trying to dribble something. So I think both of those sports are actually really good, because you're right, Mark. In baseball, it's a lot of sit and wait for the ball to never show up. And then in basketball and soccer, it's just fun.
I'd also maybe
let them go to town.
I'd also maybe like just wait to put your kid into something. I mean, sometimes your kid like they really want to do something. So I would never want to discourage that, but like, just have your kid play for a while. Yeah. Do all kinds of things where they play stuff and they mess around with stuff in the backyard. They don't have to necessarily be an organized sport. I think that they would be better off if they waited till they're about 8 or 10 years old, where they can really understand some good fundamentals of stuff. They can follow direction. They just kind of, I don't know, they're just like, they're not babies anymore, you don't have to worry about them really. They still might whine and stuff like that, but like, they can actually focus and concentrate on something, and they can actually they can participate in the sport in a lot better way than if they were like 6 or 7.
Yeah, I would say if as long as there's a way to keep them, well, for sure active, but like educated on the sport. Because like, I would remember like being young, playing a sport, and like kids didn't know where first base was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, whoa, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, that's strange. So if you are gonna, I think in my opinion, if you are gonna kind of push your kids
First
towards
base
sports,
is the boobs, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you don't go straight for
Diving into home plate.
Yeah.
Why not?
But
Is that not
An in the park home run.
well, I guess, okay, so I'll end it here, but keeping them interested in the actual sport, I think is important. So whether it's not an organized thing, but like, organizing stuff yourself amongst their friends, or that'd be a pain in the ass, like nephews and nieces and stuff. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
That's something I think that we'll do, because some of the young stuff is like, it's pretty lame.
I was like, my mom had me taste everything. So she was like, played some soccer, played some baseball, played some basketball. And then finally when high school came, she's like, all right, pick one, pick soccer. So that's what we stuck with.
Yeah.
So it's good to let them vary and let them feel what they like.
Yeah. And soccer is great because, I mean, so baseball kind of, but when they're kids, like they start kicking shit like right away. As soon as they can walk, they start kicking stuff. So like you can kick. All right, cool. You can play soccer. I know it gets way more complex than that. Trust me, I know. My whole family played soccer, but like it's a low barrier of entry, and they could start wrecking kids right away.
Yeah.
Some of the coaches and or people that have athletes in the family, or if you're a younger person, I mean, recognize that Connor was 6'4", 275 in high school. He started lifting at a very young age. I think he said he started in like 5th grade, 4th grade, started lifting at a very young age, but he would not have been able to make it in the NFL if he didn't train for it. So, a guy that's just, I think it's a great story. A guy that's 6'4", 275 in high school, you would think he would just be like grandfathered into the NFL, but it doesn't work that way. And also he talked about injuries, and I actually think, I think there's a lot of things that can be done with head injuries. I think shortening the game up a little bit would help. Like, for example, if the entire game took as long as getting through 3 quarters, I think that would solve a lot of problems, because I believe that a lot of the head injuries aren't, obviously they're from the sport. You're smashing each other head to head, and the equipment kind of allows for that. The equipment allows for you just to use your body as a weapon, and use your own head as a weapon, which is probably the most common form of like head injury, is when somebody decides to use their own head as a weapon, and they either A, hurt themselves, or B, hurt the opponent, or C, all the above. They hurt themselves and the opponent. We've seen that before, where both guys kind of get knocked out. But I think aside from the obvious of just like head hunting and going after someone's head or leading with your own head, I think a solution to some of this is to A, have better conditioning, and B, see if there's some things that we can do in the sport so that the guys aren't as fatigued. Because if anyone that's done any sort of like boxing or any sort of physical sport where you're against another person, MMA, jiu-jitsu, even like wrestling, you're way more vulnerable to get hurt when you are exhausted.
Yes.
And if you're kind of getting your ass kicked, it's like, well, now you're exhausted and you're mentally broke. And when you're broke, you're less likely to
you take more risks.
You're not making good decisions when you're fatigued. They say fatigue makes cowards of us all. And I think that that's what's happening a lot of times in the NFL. And I think that the conditioning side of things is like way undersold. I just know from, I didn't play nearly at that level, but from the amount of football that I played, I could say that pretty much everyone on the field was always a little bit out of shape. They weren't in the shape that you really need. Maybe aside from some of like the wide receivers, they're running down the field the whole entire game. But everyone on the field could utilize that same level of conditioning. And it's really rare for people to have that. So people might kind of claim like, oh, fourth quarter, I'm not tired, but they definitely don't feel like they did in the first and second quarter.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, you want to take us on home, Andrew?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. How freaking cool was it that a professional Jets player talking about how much he uses a slingshot?
I know,
that's
it's great.
Fucking sick. I love that. So if you guys like today's episode, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed right now, and hit that bell notification so you guys don't miss any videos or when we go live, because we have been doing Q&As. We're going to do more of that stuff coming up soon. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. Shout out and thank you to Element for sponsoring today's episode. Links to them down in the YouTube description as well as the podcast show notes. Again, drinklmnt.com/Power Project. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z, same as Twitter. And Nsima, where are you at?
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and it's me Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark.
Seahawks algorithm.
Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm not letting that slide. I'm going to research that.
Yeah.
I saw you write it down once he said it.
I want to see what's going on with that.
Imagine we use that for like hiring people.
Yeah, right?
That'd be sick.
That was amazing. That was super interesting. I was like, huh? They had what was it, algorithm to see like
adversity.
What adversity they faced, and
an adversity algorithm.
Perseverance, which is another word I can't pronounce.
Like your adversity algorithm on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 0.12.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit,
you've been handed everything.
God damn it. Anyway, I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.